When Caroline returns to her prestigious boarding school's 10-year reunion, she's met with cold stares and whispered conversations that fall silent when she approaches. Former friends who once welcomed her into their inner circle now treat her like a stranger, or worse, a threat. As the evening unfolds, Caroline realizes their hostility isn't random. They're hiding something that involves her, something that happened a decade ago. What she uncovers will force everyone to confront the truth they've been desperate to bury. Subscribe to our channel for more real stories of betrayal, justice, and personal triumph. The wrought iron gates of Ashford Academy looked exactly as I remembered them, imposing, elegant, and designed to intimidate anyone who didn't belong. I stood there for a moment, my hand resting on the cool metal, wondering if I'd made a mistake coming back after all these years. My name is Caroline Mitchell, and 10 years ago, I graduated from one of the most exclusive boarding schools in New England. Back then, I was the scholarship girl, the outsider who somehow managed to infiltrate a world of trust funds and summer homes in the Hamptons. I worked harder than anyone, got better grades than most, and by senior year, I thought I'd finally earned my place among them. I was wrong. If you've ever felt like you didn't belong, hit that subscribe button, because this story is for you. The invitation had arrived 3 months ago, embossed letters on cream cardstock announcing the class of 2015's 10-year reunion. I'd almost thrown it away. Almost. But something made me keep it. Made me wonder what had happened to the people who'd once been my whole world, even if they'd never fully accepted me into it. The main building glowed with warm light, and I could hear music and laughter drifting across the manicured lawn. I smoothed down my navy blue dress. Simple, elegant, expensive enough to show I'd done well for myself, but not so flashy as to seem like I was trying too hard. My hands were shaking slightly as I walked up the stone pathway. Inside the grand ballroom, everything was exactly as pretentious as I'd expected. A string quartet played in the corner, waiters circulated with champagne and canapes, and my former classmates clustered in familiar groups, their expensive clothes and practiced smiles creating an invisible barrier around each conversation. I grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing tray and took a deep breath. This was fine. I was fine. I'd built a successful career as a data analyst at a tech company in Boston, bought my own condo, traveled to 3 continents in the past year. I had nothing to prove to these people, except I did. Otherwise, why was I here? Caroline? A voice called out, and I turned to see Madison Wells approaching. Or rather, Madison Wells Hardington now, if the massive diamond on her finger was any indication. We'd been roommates sophomore year, before I'd been moved to a different dorm. For administrative reasons, they'd said, though I'd always suspected Madison's mother had made a phone call. Madison, hi. I managed a smile. You look amazing. Thanks. Her response was clipped, her eyes scanning me from head to toe in a way that made me feel like I was being evaluated for auction. I'm surprised you came. I heard you were living in Boston. The way she said Boston made it sound like I'd announced I was living in a cardboard box under a bridge. Yes, I work in tech, data analytics. It's been really fulfilling. How nice. Madison's smile didn't reach her eyes. Well, I should go find my husband. Enjoy the party. She walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing alone in the middle of the ballroom. Around me, conversations continued, but I noticed something strange. Every few seconds, someone would glance in my direction, then quickly look away. Twice, I caught groups of people whispering, their eyes darting toward me before they turned back to their tight circles. It wasn't paranoia. Something was definitely wrong. I made my way toward the bar, hoping another drink would steady my nerves. That's when I saw her. Victoria Ashford, the headmaster's daughter and the undisputed queen of our class. She stood at the center of a group of our former classmates, her platinum blonde hair perfectly styled, her red dress probably costing more than my monthly rent. Our eyes met across the room, and for just a second, I saw something flash across her face. Fear? Anger? Before I could identify it, her expression smoothed into cold indifference. Caroline Mitchell. She said my name like it was a diagnosis. I honestly didn't think you'd have the nerve to show up. The conversations around us died. Everyone was watching now, sensing drama, the way sharks sense blood in the water. Why wouldn't I? I kept my voice steady, even though my heart was pounding. I graduated from Ashford just like everyone else here. Victoria laughed, a sharp sound that held no humor. Did you, though? Or did you just slip through the cracks? What's that supposed to mean? She took a step closer, her perfume expensive and overwhelming. It means, Caroline, that some of us remember exactly what happened senior year. And some of us think you have a lot of nerve coming back here and pretending like you belong. I felt the blood drain from my face. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Victoria's smile was vicious. The writing competition, Professor Blackwell, any of this ringing a bell? My stomach dropped. The Ashford Literary Prize had been the most prestigious honor the school offered. A $50,000 scholarship and a guaranteed internship at a major publishing house. I'd won it senior year with a personal essay about growing up poor and fighting for a place in a world that didn't want me. 2 weeks after graduation, the prize had been revoked. No explanation, just a terse letter informing me that irregularities had been discovered and the award was being reconsidered. I'd been devastated, confused, and too intimidated to fight back. I'd assumed my essay had somehow violated some rule I didn't understand, another reminder that I didn't truly belong in their world. That was 10 years ago, I said quietly. I don't know why you're bringing it up now. Because you're standing here acting like a victim, Victoria hissed, when everyone in this room knows the truth about what you did. What would you have done in my place? Drop a comment and let me know, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. I didn't do anything. My voice was shaking now. They took away my prize, and I never even found out why. You plagiarized, Victoria announced loudly enough for half the room to hear. You stole Professor Blackwell's work and passed it off as your own. That's why they revoked your prize. That's why you don't belong here. The room erupted in whispers. I felt dizzy, like the floor was tilting beneath my feet. That's not true, I said, but my voice came out as barely a whisper. I wrote that essay myself, every word of it. Really? Victoria pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. Because I have the emails right here. Professor Blackwell's original manuscript that you had access to as his teaching assistant, and your essay, which uses almost identical phrasing for entire paragraphs. She held up her phone, and I could see blocks of text highlighted in yellow, supposedly showing the similarities. People were crowding closer now, their faces a mixture of curiosity and judgment. I was never Professor Blackwell's teaching assistant, I said, my mind racing. I applied for that position, but Madison got it instead. Madison, who'd been watching from the edge of the crowd, went pale. Don't try to deflect, Victoria snapped. We all know what happened. You got caught cheating, they took away your prize, and now you're back here 10 years later trying to rewrite history. If I was caught cheating, I said, finding my voice at last, why wasn't I expelled? Why was I allowed to graduate? Victoria hesitated, just for a second. Because your scholarship status made it complicated. They didn't want the publicity. Something about her explanation didn't add up. If the evidence had been so clear, why wouldn't the school have simply expelled me and been done with it? Why the quiet revocation with no explanation? I want to see those emails, I said firmly. All of them. If I really plagiarized Professor Blackwell's work, there should be a complete paper trail. You don't get to make demands here, Victoria said. But there was a note of uncertainty in her voice now. You're lucky we're even letting you stay at this reunion. Letting me? I felt anger replacing my shock. This is my reunion too. I earned my place at Ashford, and I earned my diploma, no matter what you think happened with that prize. Face it, Caroline. Victoria's voice was cold. You were never really one of us. You were always just the charity case we had to tolerate. And now everyone knows you're a fraud, too. The crowd was watching us like spectators at a tennis match, their faces eager for more drama. I looked around at these people I'd once desperately wanted to impress, and something inside me finally broke free. You know what? I said quietly. You're right. I was never one of you. And thank God for that. I turned to walk away, but Madison grabbed my arm. Her face was flushed, her eyes bright with what looked like panic. Wait, she said. Caroline, we should talk. Privately. Victoria shot her a warning look, but Madison ignored it. Please, Madison said urgently. There are things you don't know. Things we need to explain before... Before what? I pulled my arm free. Before I figure out that you've all been lying about me for 10 years? It's not that simple, Madison whispered. Victoria, tell her. Tell her the truth. Shut up, Madison, Victoria hissed. But it was too late. The crack in their unified front was showing, and I wasn't about to let it seal back up. What truth? I demanded. What's really going on here? The music had stopped. The entire ballroom was silent. everyone watching our confrontation. Madison looked between Victoria and me, her face crumbling. "The essay," she finally said. "Your essay for the Ashford Prize. It wasn't plagiarized. We made that up." The room erupted in shocked gasps and furious whispers. Victoria's face went white, then red with rage. "Madison, you idiot! I can't do this anymore!" Madison was crying now, mascara tracking down her cheeks. 10 years, Victoria. We've been lying for 10 years, and I can't carry it anymore." I stood frozen, trying to process what I was hearing. Why? Why would you make up something like that? Madison looked at Victoria, who stood rigid and silent, her jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping. "Because," Madison said softly, "your essay was going to win. Everyone knew it. It was brilliant and raw and real in a way none of ours could ever be. And Victoria couldn't stand the idea of you, the scholarship girl, the outsider, winning the most prestigious prize Ashford offered. So you framed me," I said slowly. "You made it look like I plagiarized." "Victoria did," Madison corrected. "She had access to her father's office, to all the administrative files. She created fake emails, forged evidence that you'd stolen from Professor Blackwell's unpublished work. She convinced her father that you'd cheated, and he revoked your prize without even giving you a chance to defend yourself." "You weren't supposed to come back," Victoria said, her voice like ice. "You were supposed to disappear, to be too ashamed to ever show your face here again. But you just couldn't stay away, could you?" I stared at her. This person I'd once admired and envied, and felt nothing but contempt. "You destroyed my reputation, cost me $50,000 and a career opportunity because you couldn't handle losing to someone you considered beneath you," I said. "And you've spent 10 years letting me believe I'd done something wrong." "You should have stayed in Boston," Victoria spat. "You should have known your place." "My place?" I laughed, a harsh sound even to my own ears. "My place is wherever I choose to be. And right now, I choose to be here, watching your carefully constructed world fall apart." I turned to the crowd, all these people who'd been so quick to judge me, to believe the worst. "Everyone here heard Madison's confession," I said loudly. "Victoria Ashford Hardington, excuse me, just Ashford, since I doubt Daddy's trust fund extends to buying you a husband's name, committed fraud. She forged evidence and destroyed my reputation because she couldn't stand losing to someone she considered inferior." "You can't prove anything," Victoria said, but her voice wavered. "Actually," came a voice from the back of the room, "she can." I turned to see Professor Blackwell himself pushing through the crowd. He was older now, his hair more gray than brown, but his eyes were still sharp and kind. "Professor?" I couldn't believe he was here. "I thought you retired years ago." "I did," he said, walking toward us, "but when I heard about tonight's reunion, I felt I needed to attend. Caroline, I owe you an apology. A decade-late apology. But an apology nonetheless." He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "After you lost the prize, I was troubled. Your essay was exceptional. Nothing like my writing style at all, despite what the evidence claimed. So I did some investigating of my own. It took months, but I eventually uncovered the truth. The emails were forged, created from Victoria's personal computer using her father's administrative credentials. Victoria tried to grab the envelope, but Professor Blackwell held it out of reach. I brought my findings to Headmaster Ashford, but he refused to listen. His daughter's reputation was more important than the truth. He threatened to destroy my career if I pursued it further, so I resigned instead. He looked at me with genuine regret. "I'm so sorry, Caroline. I should have fought harder for you." "You have proof?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Metadata, digital fingerprints, the original manuscript that proves it was nothing like your essay. Everything needed to clear your name." He handed me the envelope. "I've been holding on to this for 10 years, hoping you'd come back so I could give it to you." I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were printouts of email headers, forensic analysis reports, and a notarized letter from Professor Blackwell himself detailing what had happened. "This is why they didn't want you here," Madison said quietly. "Why we've all been so hostile. We were scared that if you came back, if you started asking questions, the truth would finally come out." I looked around the ballroom at all these people who'd been complicit in my humiliation, either through action or silence. Some looked ashamed now. Others just looked uncomfortable at being caught. 10 years, I said softly. "You all let me suffer for 10 years. Let me think I'd done something wrong, that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't deserve to be here." "Caroline?" Madison started, but I held up my hand. No. You don't get to apologize now. You don't get to make this right with words. I turned to Victoria, who stood frozen, her perfect mask finally cracked. You took something from me. Not just the prize money or the internship, but my confidence. My belief in myself. You made me question everything about who I was and what I deserved. I didn't mean, Victoria began. Yes, you did, I interrupted. You meant every bit of it. You meant to destroy me because you couldn't stand the idea of someone like me succeeding in your world. I held up Professor Blackwell's envelope. But here's the thing about the truth, Victoria. It doesn't care about your family name or your father's money or how badly you want it buried. It always finds its way to the surface. I turned to address the entire room. I'm going to the Ashford Board of Trustees with this evidence. I'm going to clear my name and claim the prize that should have been mine a decade ago. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what happened and who was responsible. You'll destroy the school's reputation, someone called out from the crowd. No, I said firmly. Victoria did that when she chose to commit fraud rather than accept defeat. I'm just exposing it. Professor Blackwell nodded approvingly. I'll testify to everything. The board will have no choice but to act. Victoria's face had gone from red to deathly pale. My father will never let this happen. He has connections, lawyers. Your father is retired now, Professor Blackwell said calmly. The current headmaster is Dr. Patricia Chen, who has built her career on academic integrity. I've already spoken with her. She's waiting for Caroline's formal complaint. The room was completely silent now. All the judgment and contempt that had been directed at me was slowly shifting toward Victoria. I think I should go, Victoria said stiffly, trying to maintain some dignity. Yes, I agreed. I think you should. She started toward the exit, but I called after her. Victoria? She stopped, turning back reluctantly. I forgive you, I said, and watched her face twist in confusion. Not because you deserve it, but because I'm tired of carrying your betrayal around like a weight. I'm letting it go. But make no mistake, forgiveness doesn't mean there won't be consequences. She left without another word, and slowly the crowd began to disperse, groups reforming with new whispered conversations about the night's revelations. Madison approached me hesitantly. Caroline, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know. I tried to tell the truth several times over the years, but I was scared. Scared of Victoria, scared of losing my place here, scared of being exposed as a coward. I finished for her. I understand. It's easier to go along with the crowd than to stand up for what's right. She flinched but nodded. I was the teaching assistant who had access to Professor Blackwell's files. Victoria used my password when I wasn't looking. I didn't know what she was doing until it was too late, and then I was too afraid to speak up. You could have told me, I said. At any point in the past 10 years, you could have reached out and told me the truth. I know. Tears were streaming down her face again. I'm so sorry, Caroline. I know it doesn't help now, but I am so sorry. I looked at her, this woman who'd once been my friend, who'd been too weak to do the right thing when it mattered most. I don't forgive you, I said simply. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I appreciate the apology. She nodded and walked away, leaving me alone with Professor Blackwell. You handled that with remarkable grace, he said. I laughed shakily. I don't feel very graceful. I feel like I want to scream or cry or both. That's understandable. But Caroline, I want you to know something. He placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Your essay was extraordinary. One of the best pieces of student writing I've encountered in 40 years of teaching. The scholarship you lost was nothing compared to what you've already proven you can achieve. Then why does it still hurt so much? I whispered. Because they made you doubt yourself. And that's the cruelest thing one person can do to another. Hit that like button if you're feeling this story, and subscribe for more real tales of justice and triumph. Over the next few weeks, everything moved quickly. I filed my formal complaint with the Ashford Board of Trustees, supported by Professor Blackwell's evidence and testimony. The board launched a full investigation, and within a month, they'd confirmed everything. Victoria was banned from all future Ashford events, and her name was removed from several donor plaques on campus. Her father, though retired, was investigated for his role in covering up the fraud, and several of his administrative decisions were reviewed. Most importantly, My essay was officially recognized as the winner of the Ashford Literary Prize for 2015. They couldn't give me back the internship I'd lost. That ship had sailed, but they awarded me the $50,000 prize money, plus an additional $50,000 for damages to my academic reputation and emotional distress. I used part of the money to establish a scholarship fund for students from low-income backgrounds at Ashford. The Caroline Mitchell Merit Scholarship would give 5 students each year what I'd almost lost: recognition that their achievements mattered regardless of their economic status. The rest I invested in my future. I'd been saving for years to start my own data analytics consulting firm, and now I had the capital to make it happen. Within 6 months, Mitchell Analytics had 3 major clients and was profitable. I never went to another Ashford reunion. I didn't need to. I'd reclaimed what was mine, not their approval, but my own sense of worth. Professor Blackwell and I stayed in touch. He came to the launch party for my consulting firm, beaming with pride like I was his own daughter. "You know," he said as we stood on the rooftop terrace of my new office looking out over the Boston skyline, "the greatest stories are always about people who refuse to let others define them." "Is that going to be in your next book?" I asked with a smile. He'd come out of retirement to write a memoir about his decades in academia. "Maybe." He grinned. "With your permission, of course. I think people need to hear about the student who fought back and won." "Only if you change my name," I said. "I don't need any more attention from Ashford alumni." He laughed. "Deal." A year after the reunion, I got a message through LinkedIn from Madison. She'd left her job at her family's investment firm and was working for a nonprofit that provided mentorship to first-generation college students. "Caroline," her message read, "I know I have no right to reach out, and you have every right to ignore this. But I wanted you to know that watching you stand up for yourself that night changed something in me. I've spent 10 years being a coward, and I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to help students like you, students who deserve advocates, not obstacles. I hope you're well. Madison." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Madison, I'm glad you're doing something meaningful. That takes courage, even if it came later than it should have. I still don't forgive what happened, but I respect what you're trying to become. Good luck, Caroline." It wasn't much, but it was honest. And honesty was all I had left to give. 3 years later, I was invited back to Ashford, not for a reunion, but to speak at graduation. The irony wasn't lost on me as I stood at the podium in the same auditorium where I'd once been humiliated, looking out at a sea of young faces in navy blue graduation robes. "My name is Caroline Mitchell," I began, "and I'm the inaugural recipient of the Caroline Mitchell Merit Scholarship, even though I established it myself years after I graduated." There was confused laughter from the audience. "I'm here to tell you a story," I continued, "about what happens when people try to tell you that you don't belong, about what it means to fight for your place in a world that doesn't always want to make room for you." I told them everything: the false accusation, the stolen prize, the years of self-doubt. I told them about the reunion and the revelation, about reclaiming my name and my story. "The people who tried to destroy me thought my background made me weak," I said. "They thought that because I came from less, I deserved less. They were wrong." I paused, looking out at the students, some from wealthy families, others on scholarship like I'd been. "Whatever your background, whatever challenges you face, remember this: your worth is not determined by other people's prejudices. Your achievements are not diminished by their fear, and your belonging is not dependent on their approval." The applause that followed was thunderous, but it was the students who approached me afterward that mattered most. Young men and women with scholarship badges on their robes, their eyes bright with recognition and hope. "Thank you," one young woman said, gripping my hand tightly. "Thank you for showing us that we belong here." "You do belong," I told her firmly. "Never let anyone convince you otherwise." Now, 5 years after that reunion that changed everything, I run a successful consulting firm with offices in Boston and New York. I mentor first-generation college students. I serve on the Ashford Board of Trustees, making sure that what happened to me never happens to anyone else. I still have Professor Blackwell's envelope, though I've never needed to use it again. It sits in a frame on my office wall, a reminder that the truth matters, that evidence matters, that standing up for yourself, even when it's terrifying, matters most of all. Sometimes people ask me if I regret going to that reunion, if I wish I'd stayed away, avoided the confrontation, let sleeping lies continue to sleep. The answer is always no. Because that night at Ashford, standing in that ballroom surrounded by people who'd tried to erase me, I finally understood something crucial. They didn't fear my arrival because of what I might discover. They feared it because of what I'd already become. Someone who didn't need their approval, someone who'd succeeded despite their sabotage, someone who'd built her own definition of belonging. They told me I didn't belong there. They were right. I belonged somewhere better, in a life I'd built myself, on terms I'd defined, surrounded by people who valued truth over status. And that's exactly where I am. If this story moved you, subscribe to our channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear that they belong, no matter what anyone else says. Drop a comment about your own experience standing up for yourself. I read every single one. Thank you for being part of this journey.